You are listening to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls, a podcast where three women discuss horror movies from the silent era through the 1970s. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Anchor. Timely, topical, terrifying. All right, welcome. You might have missed us because you had a month without us, but such is life. But we thought we'd get it
Really?
in here because it's Vincent Price birth month. Also mine, but that's okay. And also what the Tony Awards are coming up in June, so we thought, what a perfect one. We'll just get Vincent Price, one of our favorite Vincent Price movies, Theater of Blood. So
And
also one of Vincent Price's favorite movies as well. So we
yes,
have that as well.
yes. Also, today we are recording May 25th, which is the date of the general release of the film in the UK. So,
So among the reasons why Theater of Blood was Vincent Price's favorite, I mean, he jokingly will say because he gets to kill critics, but it's also because it's one of the few movies later in his career that actually got released a major theater release as opposed to just grindhouse drive-in theater releases, which is a lot of the Corman films got. So,
it's a shame, I
which is
think.
funny. Yeah, I mean, it's really funny too because this film is it's not what you would expect given the cast. Let's put it that way. It is what you'd expect given the name of the film, but when you look at the cast, you'd be like, "Wait, what the fuck is going on here?"
It's more horror. It's horror comedy and not straight up horror like some of the other ones are. I think
Well,
that's
it's
the
not
big
even
difference.
that. Go ahead, Betsy.
I was gonna say it's very like dark comedy though. Like it really
Yes.
is
Yes.
funny. Like whether intentional or not, it's funny. It's a funny movie.
Had to be intentional, but like the cast itself is like filled with like Britain's best. Like we're
Mhm.
talking they're classic, well-known actors that like you would not have read this cast back in the day and been like, sure, a dark horror comedy film. That's what they'll be in. Like you would expect some kind of epic Jane Austen or, Shakespeare spinoff or like, a deep drama or something like that was the cast that was in this. And that was also another reason Vincent Price was like, yes, sign me on. So it's really funny when you read through. I'm like, we have a cameo by Joan Hickson, who later on went on I mean, she played a whole bunch of stuff before this, but what I know her from is a Miss Marple series that was like in the late 80s, early 90s. Like just I mean, guys help me out. This Diane Riggs,
Yes.
Diana Rigg. Oh,
Which
gorgeous.
many people know
Um,
her from Game of Thrones. It was done very late in her career. Was her
I never
last
watched it, so I didn't
Last
realize
Night
that.
in Soho?
hmm?
She's in that.
I think it
Last Night
was.
in
Yeah.
Soho, yeah, and that's the most recent one that I've
Oh,
seen.
she
Right?
was. You're right. Sorry, I was
Yep,
confused.
yep. And that one was just even then her role was nothing short of amazing. Oh,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
She
Robert
was.
Morley, Jack Hawkins, Robert Coote, Harry Andrews, Michael Horton. Like, we may not be familiar with them in our, even for our age, but they were big names in the 60s and 70s, and prior to that for some of them as well, that you would see all over BBC broadcasts and movies and stuff. So, really well-known people. But yes, thanks for bringing up Last Night. So I totally forgot that was her.
yep.
Amazing diet, which is funny because like this is a similar character actually, if you think about it.
It
Hmm.
is. It's kind of a similar character.
I wasn't thinking about that.
Like the
Like,
sleeper where you quite
Yes, yes. And her thing in Game of Thrones too, which is her most probably one of the most frequent clips that I see, is the one where she's admitting to being the poisoner of Joffrey. Well, that was beautiful when she just alludes to it, and you see the dawning realization of what happened on the other character's face, and now she's
Joffrey the evil child king.
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And you see, tell Cersei, the king's mother. I want her to know it was me, and I'm like, it was just such a lovely delivered line.
And an
And
excellent
again,
meme now.
yeah, and the entirety of her Last Night in Soho.
Oh, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, which if you haven't watched that, go watch it. It's not this, wheelhouse here, but an excellent movie. But another
It's
fun thing, so Diana Rigg noticed this chemistry between Coral Brown and Vincent Price, and she kind of put them together whenever she could because she just saw it springing up there. Now, of course, the downside to this is Vincent Price was in fact married at this time to Mary, and that's who he did most of those cookbooks and such with, and the chemistry between him and Coral Brown was very real, and he ended up divorcing Mary and marrying Coral, who he spent the rest of his life with until, I think she might have died a year before him.
I believe
I
she did. Yeah.
believe.
And then
Yeah, he was a bit of a cad, but we still love him.
yeah, no one's perfect. Vincent Price came a little close, but definite philanderer. But
Mm.
there you have it. At any rate, so Theater of Blood, for those of you who don't know, which I'm sad for you if you don't, but if and also excited because that means you get to go watch it for the first time ever and enjoy the incredibleness that is Theater of Blood.
It
So
is.
basic quick plot summary is Vincent Price is Edward Lionheart, who is a Shakespearean theater actor who is always waiting for his Critics' Choice Award and never gets it. And he finally like has a breakdown because he knew this year was his year. And he was like, it was one of those things where like they go to announce the name, he's so sure he stands up, not him. So add that to the embarrassment. He goes to confront the critics, right? And they're just mocking him anyway. So he dramatically throws himself off the balcony of the high-rise penthouse that these people were congregating in and does not quite die. He gets rescued by a bunch of meth heads, I believe they're referred to as, but I've never seen meth look like purple
I don't
liquid, but
know.
that's okay.
We could just say, people down and out on their luck.
Yeah. Like I actually think they even show up in the cast as meth heads, but I might be wrong, so feel free to
Yeah.
correct me if you see that later. But at any rate, he gets rescued, plots his revenge using his daughter, who mostly spends most of the time in drag, which is awesome. Um,
Love it.
and then has these creative ways to kill each of the critics.
Sorry.
Comes up with very creative kills for each of the critics, which we will go into because we have to, right? And then obviously ultimately meets a dramatic demise. And I have to say it's the perfect thing for Vincent Price because it
He
is,
was chewing up the scenery.
and that's what he does, I mean, that's why he's so great in these films is, I mean, he's an excellent actor and he doesn't have to. You could tell it's a deliberate choice when he does do this, which is
Mhm.
most of the Corman films and stuff like that. But you've seen him in things like Laura and other movies and Dragon
Dragonwood.
Wick, and he doesn't chew on the scenery that he just does amazing job acting. But like these other roles, he just decided he called for this and does it. You know what I mean? And here he just does it to the extreme, and it's amazing. Like he just takes how would an actor overact and be Vincent Price at the same time, and he just goes with it, and it's so incredible.
It's like the role was written for him. You know.
And maybe it was. I don't really remember reading that in the
Oh,
trivia, but I could see somebody going, this is Vincent Price."
mm-hmm.
But
Agreed.
and Diana Rigg, let's just talk about her phenomenal job. Like, so she's gorgeous. She was always gorgeous.
I
Emma
mean,
Peel, all this, to the day she died. She died? Yeah,
yeah,
right.
a couple years
She's
ago.
gorgeous. And but she was never an actress that wanted to be about her looks, which I know I'm sure most actors and actresses don't want to just be about their looks, but a lot of them will be like, this is my edge, I'm gonna take it. That was not Diana. She was like, or Diane, sorry, she was like, I want to act in crazy, weird shit too. And I think that's also one of the reasons why she took this role. So most of the time she's showing up as a guy. And I'm gonna say terrible drag, but not great drag. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Although the amount of time that it took me to realize it was her was shocking. Like, I just wasn't paying attention to that character very closely until I did. And then I was like,
Well, because you don't, you kind of relegate it to that character is the assistant.
right, the weird hippie assistant.
Then the reveal later, you're like, son of a bitch. Oh.
It's cleverly done. Like I just remember the
Yes.
first, well, vaguely remember the first time I ever watched it. I was like, it's like a girl, but I didn't really stick it together. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I
Yeah.
just thought it was like either a very effeminate looking man at one point, like because it was the 70s. So
Not out of
or
the
that it
possibility.
was a deliberate choice they were doing, and then like So like the first time I saw it, the reveal was a little bit like, oh, okay, that was that. Okay. But like, and that's why I said it was kind of like bad drag because like you just they didn't do anything to change her features. They just put like hair on her face. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can it looked like a woman in drag.
It would be like if I just threw on a mustache,
It's the equivalent.
Mm.
which is
But
fine.
I
I mean,
mean, go ahead,
but that makes
Betsy.
it more fun also because she's fooling all these people. And it's not even really well, like, the makeup isn't helping. Like, she's fooling all these people just with, like, her pure physicality, like, the way that she's, like, not talking, I guess. It's very fun. Like, these people have met her. They know who she is. They recognize her as being his daughter. And then at one point, she wears, like, a blonde wig and pretends to be someone else.
Yeah, that one really gets me because it's like how all it is a change of hairstyle. I would like to think that I would
And extra
recognize
makeup.
people if they changed their hair and put on different makeup.
I mean, I'm guessing it's probably because the girl's wearing kind of a tight dress. So he's not looking at her face at all. He's looking at
No,
her
no,
neck.
it's
And her legs.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Which, I mean,
Because it was I
it's
would too, because
Diana
she was
Rigg.
gorgeous.
You want to look at those things.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that was the genius of it. You guys are right. So like I don't know if it was deliberately like that, but I think it was your point, Rebecca, that she was just the assistant in the background, so you didn't quite pick up or pay too much attention to him slash her at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And also the genius of like these people were so conceited and arrogant that this woman was right under their nose and they just were disregarding him, because they just wanted to. It was just a plea, but they weren't even going to give them the attention to
Yeah.
notice, oh shit,
Yeah.
this person
They
is.
they were seeing what they expected to see, and they did
Mm,
not bother to look any clearly, look any deeper.
yeah,
Oh.
it's
It
just
just
well done.
adds
It's
to,
so oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it just adds to the fun of this, though. Because the fun of it is that in the end, you kind of feel like these critics deserve it. Like they, like you
Yes,
don't, but you kind of do because they're kind of being
they're
assholes. Like,
they're bullying without a concept of the what consequences their words may have beyond just play. Because I think, and don't the, I forget who illuminates it, if it's the daughter or him, but there's so many people behind the production of a play. How many people does this affect? How many people does this put out of work when something flops?
Mm, exactly. And I don't know about you, but I am to this day still wanted to see that guy get his comeuppance, and I'm mad as fuck that he never did.
Agree, same,
agree.
same.
Because honestly, he was one of the worst. Like, he
Ah,
never learns his lesson. He continues to be snarky and bitchy, which is fun, but also, like, I want to see him get a little bit of a smack. It doesn't necessarily have to be death, but I do want him to at least get, like, something
Got a
more than
little one
just, yeah.
because of the fencing, which is an interesting part. So like to me, that scene never made a lot of sense, but it was fun to watch. But it was mostly pushed in there by Vincent Price,
I
who
was going to say,
had
Vincent
taken
Price
all
just
the
wanted to have a fencing scene.
because he had all these skills that he hadn't used because he did have a stint at the theater, and I'm sure all throughout his life. But he started, I believe, on the theater, and then once he's had a movie career, it kind of fell to the side. So all these fencing skills and things that he learned, he didn't get to use because most of the movies and stuff he in did not involve. They were not Errol Flynn movies. Let's put it that way. So there was
Yeah.
no
It was not
swashbuckling and
vassal
craziness.
rathboning.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So he was like, let's get this in there. And then sadly, most of that scene ended up being stunt doubles, though he got a little of his own fencing in there, but not as much as he wanted. But it was an extremely elaborate fence duel. Like, I mean, not like Princess Bride, but kind of close. I mean, they're going up and down stairs and over like even bars and like up on the
Mm-hmm.
balance beam,
Trampoline
trampolines.
scene. Yeah.
So it was a wild one, but he did slice up that critic pretty well at the end. But outside of that, like you're just kind of like, hmm. And then when you find out later that really that scene was only there because Vincent Price was like, I want a fencing scene. And you're like, okay. I mean, it
I
wasn't
mean,
terribly discongruent, but it didn't make
No, I
sense that
mean,
he would confront this guy without killing him,
yeah,
when everybody else
it,
was a one and done.
because it
well,
fit
and
in well with the scheme of the plays. Because
Romeo and
that one
yeah.
was the Romeo and Juliet tag.
Hmm. They integrated it, but it was again a little. You want to go through the kills one
I
by
think we
one?
should. I do. I think we should.
Okay, so our first kill, and this one's hilarious to me. So they call in a critic who I believe he owned that building. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was.
Because there's vagrants that the cops can't roust.
Yeah.
So he gets a call from the cops to come, hey, you got to get these people out of here. It's your building, which is not really what would happen.
No, definitely not.
More likely, the owner would call the cops to get the cops to roust the people out of there. It doesn't, but maybe England's different.
I don't think they're that different.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is again to the point where similarly where they looked Diane Riggs right in the face and didn't recognize her. They look Vincent Price as Edward Lionheart right in the face, and this critic does not recognize him. And we're
Which
not talking about an excellent makeup job here either.
no, it's not even complicated. So, which
In
gives
fact, I
points.
would have noticed the bad makeup if I were him. I was like, "What the fuck is
Yeah,
that on your face?"
it gives points to the obliviousness of the critics, and maybe a tiny little bit to the good acting of the character.
Yeah,
You know?
his excellent acting skills.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they bring him into the building, and again, it's Edward Lionheart and Edwina, his daughter, right? That are dressed as the cops leading this man to the slaughter. They lead him up to the vagrants, which were the people that pulled Vincent Price out of the mud, which you don't know this at the time, of course. So you don't get that end story until the end, or the beginning story until the end, which is
Right.
nice. You just see a bunch of really well, props to these actors because they look disgusting, you know?
They did. They looked like the absolute dregs of society. Heroin addicts to the last.
They
Which
Heroin addicts and drunkards.
I did look it up, and they were called meths drinkers, METHS or METHS, meths drinkers. And
yeah,
I'm
see,
wondering if there's something weird that is meths that is British that we don't know. So give me a
quite
second.
possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look that up. I'll keep going, or Rebecca and I will keep going. So
I was gonna say, do the thing.
they're laying in there and like, I mean, literally, I'm like, if I walked in that building, I'm like, no, you all deal with this. They're groping on each other. They're drunk. It's gross. It's nasty. I'm like,
Expect to see a
no,
syringe hanging out of their arm.
the
Oh.
drooling. And of course, this critic that owns the landlord is like starts kicking them and trying to get them to move and stuff. And they just up and like chase them around and start stabbing them.
A la
You know.
Julius Caesar.
Hmm. It's
And it is.
lovely. Like, just like, and this guy's like, and it's funny because right before it really starts, he has enough sense to realize, oh shit, I'm outnumbered and feels the menace, like just before they start stabbing him. But up until that point, he was like, just Betsy, did you find it?
Okay. So meths is methanol. They're drinking methanol.
No.
Oh, Jesus H.
So
Christ.
all of our like drinking alcohol is ethanol. That's what is in like alcohol. Methanol is what's used to make like antifreeze.
That
It
would
is.
explain
So
the purple.
Yes. It will make you
so
go
you
wrong.
would buy it
The
from
shit.
like a chemist and it was super cheap because it was methanol. And so it would give you a drunk, but it shouldn't have been drunk and it would really mess with your system, apparently. So
It
things that
was.
have methanol in them, paint thinner, varnish, de-icing fluid. You shouldn't drink it. So that's what they were drinking was methanol. It's methylated alcohol.
Yeah.
Now
There's
we know.
It's similar in the lab where you have ethanol, which is slightly denatured with methanol. So you're telling so that people will not steal the pure ethanol and drink it, like grad students and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay, that explains the purple. That explains why I kept thinking they were meth heads because the word meth was, in fact, in their names. Um,
Okay.
and it also explains the purple pellet. We're all good. Now we got it. Thank you,
I was
Betsy.
gonna say,
So
Explains
yeah,
the
there we go.
insanity very well.
yeah. Meanwhile, so like, yeah, they kill him a la Julius Caesar. Later on, they bring let's see, you have the critics are meeting to decide who's supposed to get this year's award. There's a 5 year gap between when Edward Lionheart jumps and is rescued by the meth drinkers and when the first murder takes place,
Oh,
just to give context. Um, but they bring one of the critics down to like look at it, and they see a poster, Edward Lionheart and Julius Caesar, and even then, that critic is like, "Yeah, he's not a very good actor, you know, still
they're like
nasty, you know."
clues are right there in front of them, but it never clicks for any of them.
And as expected, they just kind of blow off the stuff. So this is not the most creative death, but it is creative in the sense of tying it into a Shakespearean play, right?
And that it did happen on the Ides of March.
Yes, as well. Well done, in my opinion, So then we move on. Little time spends. Which is our next? The next one was what? Troilus and Cressida,
Troilus and Cressida.
which
Troilus
I'm
and
not super
Cressida.
familiar with that play. I know
And
just
neither am I. It's another one of the tragedies, which I think all of them were, except for like Henry VI, because that's one of kind of his history plays. Oh.
fair.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Troilus and Cressida either, but it's
I vaguely
there's
It's
remember reading it way back in the day, but it didn't really stick much in my head other than,
it's Trojan War.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because
that's
it
about
is
all I
Hector
remember.
that gets killed.
Right. So let's see, where does he lure that guy into? Actually, he just
Um,
invites him to the theater.
yeah,
yes,
he
yeah.
just brings him to the
Um,
theater.
Edwina, dressed as the unnamed assistant,
Hmm.
brings him to the theater and actually tells him that Edward Lionheart is alive, if I recall correctly.
Yes, and he's like, "Oh, that's lovely," It's not
And
gonna be for you,
then
buddy.
down comes Vincent Price in a very spooky looking costume. I thought that one was well done.
Yeah.
Stabs him with a
Like
spear and then cut to the funeral scene for the first um critic, which Edwina actually makes her first appearance as Edwina actually during that scene as well, I believe. And
Accurate.
yeah, and so they're all there, they're all talking. I don't think they've realized anything yet. The cops are there, but they're like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people would want to kill a critic, right?
Yeah. I
And
think
then
that
all of
was
a sudden, oh, sorry, go ahead.
first I think that was the first time when somebody else brought up the point of all the other people that are associated in the work of a play. I
It might
think
be.
that may have been the first scene.
So, and then all of a sudden you see a horse come trotting along, and there's critic number two's body being dragged along behind it,
Hmm.
and they freak out.
Yep. Chaos ensues.
And you have a nice little scene where the main critic, we'll call him the head bully, right? I
Yeah.
could learn their names, but I just feel like
Uh,
it's not
Devlin
worth it.
was that guy. I think that was the character's name.
What was it?
Devlin?
Devlin, okay.
Yeah.
Um, he confronts Edwina, but it's weird. Like he basically just insults her dad a couple more times, and she's like, "He's dead. You're
Pretty
still picking
much.
on him." He
Yeah.
accuses him of being the reason, basically murdering her dad, which just would be true if he had died. You know,
Yep.
they certainly did not stop him from jumping off the balcony, and they certainly didn't try to talk him down. So
He was a big contributing factor.
for sure. And then we move along to the third death. Now, you guys remember which one that one was?
Cymbeline, I think so. I think. Because there's a character in it who wakes up to her husband, like, decapitated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I
And
did not remember. I never read that play at all.
no, neither did I. Apparently, like, during Victorian times, it was not terribly popular because they thought it had too much magic in it. So now, which makes me curious, I'm gonna have to see if
I
I
have to
can
look it up.
find a recording of it being put on somewhere.
I'm sure there is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, now I just want to read it. But yes, which because I mean that makes sense because they seem to have a conjuring scene when they're prepping their trunk for the
Yeah.
slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my brain always like flips it to Trojan War because of the chesting in the room.
Yeah, I can totally see that connection.
It has nothing to do with it. It's just where my brain goes because I think it's the funniest shit in the world that somebody just plopped this trunk in their room without ever trying to open it or figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, why would
And
you
they're
put it in
just like,
somebody's
oh,
trunk?
we'll deal with it later. You seem pretty
I'm
blasé
like,
about it just shows up in your house.
you're not going to open the trunk? I kept
Especially when
going, you're not going to open the trunk.
especially
I
when
think
two
they
other
tried to,
people
but it
that they
was
know have
not.
been killed.
I know that's the thing. I would be suspicious, but they try to open it. They can't because it's locked. So they're like, that's when and this is the character that's Joan Hicks, and the wife's like, we'll just deal with it later. And they just go to sleep. But it is the funniest fucking scene because of the hypodermic.
Yes.
And Joan Hickson makes the most English lady noises ever during that scene. Mumbles at her husband and hits him anytime he snores, and also when his head's being sawed off because she thinks he's snoring.
He's
To be
snoring.
fair, she was sedated at that point. Yeah, and then Vincent Price is like hypodermic, you
As,
know.
as he's asking for tools like a surgeon would, and he's even in a little surgeon's get up and scalpel and Joan Hicks'
Uses
character.
lipstick to mark the surgery line.
I forgot
That
about
was my favorite was the lipstick.
that.
Especially how he made the point to deliberately like do the little twist mark thing, like to make sure the lipstick sticks well. It was hilarious. And then like Basin as blood is
Flirting.
Oh god.
it is a mess. It is so funny. Now the thing that always confused me though, because I mean, so it's the 70s and you know, physical effects are not always that great even nowadays. So I did not realize that was supposed to be a fake head sitting on the body and that the real head had been moved to another place. And I'm still not sure if that's really what happened. I get very confused about that scene.
I don't think it was. I think it was his real head. I just think it was a really poor production of a real head.
Well, because
Because
you
I
see it
think,
later on, also in the other critic, Devlin's apartment, the head is there too. I don't know if it's because the cops brought it there or if I just mix things in my brain every time I watch it.
I don't know.
I'd have to
I
go
have to
back
look
and
at it
check.
again. There's a lot of weirdness going on there that I'm not sure I quite catch. And it might have been just something where like they brought the evidence to get him identified, or maybe I just transposed the image over because the
Hmm.
next scene where they go over to see Devlin, the cops do, is very quickly after. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
blend it from one scene to the next.
yeah, and it doesn't make a lot of sense because they don't show the cops come to the house where the actual decapitated body is. They show them at the other critic's apartment. That's why I get very scattered about that scene. So that would be my one criticism. That did not play well. Just that little weird intersection there. Like,
Yeah,
why
it
would
was
the
that one was a
cops?
little weird. Yeah.
But it's funny as fuck though.
That is accurate.
And now at this point, they're sure that these critics are like being targeted. And I think this is when we get the perv's death, if I recall correctly.
This was no, I thought this one was Othello. I'd have to
No, I
double
think that
check.
was after, but I could be
No,
wrong.
it's Cymbeline goes
And they
to, I
send the
looked it up.
Okay.
It's
okay,
Merchant of Venice. It's Shylock.
okay. I am
Okay.
right. It is the
Okay.
perv's
All
death.
right. Got it. Yeah, you're correct then. I
Because
think I
it was like
missed the step.
because right after she lures him away, that so yeah, Edwina shows up in the gorgeous, 70s mini dress, low cut top,
Go boots. Yeah.
yeah, gorgeous go-go boots. And you got the old man critic who's all like, and she tells
Yeah.
him that, she announces the death to that guy before anybody even knows about it, really. And he's like, how do you know? And she's like, oh, I was over there. He was supposed to come watch our little community theater, group and give us pointers. And this guy is like, could you come instead? Just hears the other critics dead. She's like, oh, sure, I'll go follow her. And as he's walking out, a police car comes in because they're looking for him to warn him, hey, we know they're targeting your people. But too late. And so, yeah, we have Merchant of Venice where, they pretend it's an interactive theater experience, which is brilliant on so many levels,
Oh,
really.
yeah.
I mean, truly.
I mean, aside from the actually getting stabbed part, it would be a really cool thing to do. It's kind of what, the murder mystery dinners and stuff are now, right?
Right?
So again, aside from getting stabbed and having your heart cut out. This scene, for practical effects, it's actually pretty ingenious. So, they did a good job with a fairly realistic heart, and they even gave a little effect so it was steaming a little when he pulled it out of the body, which I thought was clever.
I enjoyed it.
But yeah, so like they have him play oh, I know Vincent Price was playing the Shylock. I can't remember the name of the character that was being accused, but anyway, they have him play the opposing character, and then
Antonio.
thank you, Antonio, and then the Shylock gets his pound of flesh, which was Vincent Price cutting out his heart. It's so funny too because he even plops it on the scale. He's like, "Up, a little much, pound exactly."
Ounces over.
Slices off a little piece of the heart, tosses it, 16 ounces exactly. Puts it in a very ornate box, and sends it. Yeah, it's chef's kiss. Sends it off to the critics. And they're waiting for him, and they're like, "Ah, my heart is with you," or "I'm there with you in heart." I think it was the note. And they open the box, and of course, there's the heart, right? But the funniest part is like they're looking. So this was the order of the deaths and the plays he chose was his theater repertoire that he did for that season that he lost that he thought he'd win. So they know what plays he's going to do. They don't necessarily know who he's going after each time, but they know the order of the plays and deaths. And they weren't
Please.
super worried about this one because in Merchant of Venice, there isn't actually a person killed in the play.
Yes.
Not a flesh. So next one. That's one of the
Othello.
is
Next
Othello
one is
actually
Richard
no.
the Third.
Christ,
Okay.
I keep checking.
Because you like the Othello one, I could tell. We all do, but Richard the Third. So
Richard the Third.
this one they are onto, right? Like they know already. The cops know. The critics know. And he gets invited to a wine tasting.
Oh, and yes, it's an excellent death.
And they leave the cop outside. The cop's not suspicious. He goes in. Rebecca, Betsy, Rebecca, you mentioned it's an excellent death. You want to walk through it?
Sure. Yeah, so he's at the wine tasting, being all frou-frou. Diana Rigg's character basically comes and is, I think she's supposed to be escorting him to some special wine, and where he's brought down into the cellar, and then you start to see everybody else follow, and you're like, aha, it's coming, and you know it is. And the tie-in is to history because the Duke of Clarence, Richard III's brother, I think was his brother, was supposedly committed treason, and he chose his death by being drowned in a butt of Malmsey wine, which is apparently his favorite. And so that's the death in the play. And going through forgive me, the scene, and again, Vincent Price chewing up the scenery, doing a great job playing Richard the Hunchback, and they drown the guy in the wine. And I don't they nail him into the cask?
They like entomb him in the barrel of wine.
Yeah, he's already dead at that point because they're shoving him in the wine head first. Oh, so it was, I think, one of the more creative kills. Although
like that
again, not original because they did copy it from the play, which copied it from supposedly real life, but a good one nonetheless.
And well done,
Mm-hmm.
Again, this guy doesn't get suspicious until like, he gets a little annoyed because he's there for the wine, but he's like, I'm here for a wine tasting, not for...
it took him a ridiculously long time to realize what the fuck, there's a problem. And he knows. And he knows at this point that, how many other deaths at that point? 3?
There's 3 dead so far, right? Yeah.
4.
4?
4.
The 5th is him, so he is 5th.
Yeah.
So there have been 4 deaths before this.
I do believe now, is this the Othello one that comes next?
First we have the aforementioned Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, right, but that's,
the
fencing scene ends up in here.
Yes, but yes, he chooses not to kill him. So then it like throws everybody off, and then is Othello.
Yeah. Which
Which
again
this
is
one's hilarious.
oh yeah.
But I just need to point out that Vincent Price looks like Vincent Price, and he still walks right by this cop and had been doing so for like a month at
Hmm.
least.
Yeah.
That's because I think at that time they're still thinking that it's someone related to him, not him, because they think he's dead. So they're like, it has to be the daughter. They're not looking for him. They're looking for the daughter. And of course, we know the daughter is actually the weird hippie. So
No, I can't remember though. Did they arrest the daughter already at this point, or was it
it may
after?
I
have,
thought at that point they had brought her in for questioning,
Yeah, but they
but
held her for a
not.
while because they released her after he did another murder. I don't remember
Mm,
if it was this one or I believe the following one that involved the
ah,
puppies, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was one of the two. But this
Yeah.
one is hilarious. Like they even tell him what's going to happen because like the cops are talking to Devin, whatever his name is, after he's been sliced up, and he's like, "Yeah, the manipulative man tricks Bella into killing his wife by you know."
making her jealous or making
Mhm.
him jealous.
Alice.
Yeah,
And
this
then
one was,
no, she couldn't have been arrested yet because she made the phone call.
you're right.
Now I think about it.
Yep. Yeah. This one was good. Uh,
Yeah,
just
I
in
think
the
she was arrested just before the Titus Andronicus one.
Mm. So yeah, so Edwina makes a phone call to the critic and says, might behoove you to come home early from work to see what your wife's been up to. Um, there's a weird scene where the critic is groping a naked boy statue in a park. He's like,
As he's watching his house, he sees, Price's character go in and
also does not recognize Price's character at this point in time,
yeah,
does not see.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, walks right in, and of course, it looks funny. He's waving, the wife's hanging out the window going, you know. And like the guy takes a long time to get to the house because by the time he gets there, the wife is stripped down, is wrapped in a towel, and Vincent Price has already started giving her a massage.
which is what was happening. He was giving
Hmm.
her a massage.
And of course, she's oohing and awing as you might do while you're getting the kinks worked out, right? I mean, however you want to look at
Yeah,
that.
she's like, oh, and he's pushing pretty hard. So when the guy looks through the peephole, it certainly looks like if you're just looking through a peephole and you're already predisposed to think that there is sexual things happening, it looks like sex enough.
Hmm.
It does. And of course, he comes in, gets pissed, pretty much ignores Vincent Price, who's whispering in his ear, like, I think it was a line from Othello basically saying that, your wife's been fucking tons of other people, not just, you.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just one. Haha.
And of course, as in Othello, he smothers his wife with a pillow. You know? So again, another one straight from the play. That's so creatively done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And also, like, this is a bit of an out because he does destroy the man's life, but in a totally different way. He doesn't kill this one. This guy goes to prison for life because he murdered his own wife.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you don't go after the person, you go after what they love.
Yeah. Well, and his goal isn't necessarily the murder, it is to destroy their
It's
lives, which could be to
yes.
actually take the life, could be to get the guy throw himself in jail. So, and plus
That is a
he's,
mission accomplished.
mhm. And this is a strategic actor who's like saying that he's the greatest. So you gotta leave yourself open to interpretation, right?
Very.
Meanwhile, you still have the main critic who's still like, he's this, he's that. He just never did anything creative. Only his repertoire was Shakespeare only. Still, I kind of wanted to push him into something else and, somehow trying to make himself seem altruistic. And that most of that comes out in the Romeo and Juliet scene with the
Yeah, it's oh
fencing.
no
Right.
But
no no. I meant well. I meant well.
I'm trying to help you become a better actor, or I was trying to help you evolve into a better
Right.
actor.
I was
Yeah.
just trying to help you become a better actor. It wasn't that I was being critical, it's that I was trying to help you. Like, no, if you're going to be helpful, then you give helpful criticism. You don't rip someone's whole thing apart and call them like some of the words that were used in those, because he says what the words are as he's doing this. Horrible. Like if I got that review, I would be crushed. Like,
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, that's a nice touch too. He reads the reviews, like not before the first
Yes.
one, but I think he mentions it after the murder for the first
Think so.
kill. And then there on out, he would like kind of some of them he'll do before, some of them during, some of them after.
Yeah, he does incorporate it a bit.
Yeah. At the very least, he brings it up, like says out loud, oh, but that's okay because I was an actor who would make dogs cry or whatever. That wasn't one of them, but I can't remember what all of them were, but that was definitely, I thought that was a fun part of it, him having memorized what they said about him.
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of drove home the impact those words have on people who are performing, you know?
Mhm.
Like that negative commentary is in your head. And well, I don't know about you, but most of us have negative commentary in our head enough as it
Anyway,
is.
yeah. And
So,
any exterior stuff that we hear can feed back in on that, and it becomes a whole messy nightmare in your head.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, next is this is one of my favorites. It's terrible because, okay, trigger warning. No animals were actually hurt in the filming. Vincent Price is a huge fan of animals and he loves dogs. So,
Mhm.
There's one in between these two.
oh, there is?
It's the burning. It's the
Oh
scene in
yes,
the
yes. That I saw.
salon.
Also extremely
Oh,
creepy.
corals was first. I for some reason I
Yeah,
thought
she's
hers was after, but you're
first.
right. My bad. Okay, so corals. This is my other favorite one actually.
I loved
Um,
this one.
so that critic, God, what was her name? I should remember her name.
Her name is
Miss
Chloe
Chloe
Moon.
Moon.
I
There
have
we
it
go.
up.
Miss Chloe Moon. Thank you for keeping us on track, Betsy. Yeah, so Miss Chloe Moon, she shows up. Okay, first of all, oh, one thing I forgot to mention during the Othello kill. Vincent Price comes out, talks to the cop that is waiting at the gate, and goes, I think he's murdering his wife. The cop's like, oh, okay, thank you. Good day, sir. And
Yeah.
like he just said, it's 4 o'clock. Do you notice that it might rain today? You know, like,
It was
and the
met with
cop's just like, do, I'll go and look. No, does not move expeditiously at all, does not seem shocked or worried. But yeah, it was so funny. It was just like, I guess I'll go check and see if I need an umbrella. I do. But yes, okay. So, and again, we still have this after. I think she couldn't have been called in cops that it must be after this one that they call in Diana Riggs for questioning and keep her, which would make sense.
yeah.
But at any rate, so now you have Miss Chloe Moon's character, the critic Chloe Moon, who's played by Cora Brown, Vincent Price, future third wife. And she has a hair appointment. The cop's with her again. Nobody thinks it's suspicious that she got a call that her normal hair appointment at 4 was canceled and moved 3 hours later past closing time at the salon to 7 o'clock at night, right? Nobody
Nothing absolutely suspicious about that. Move along.
at all. And
Mm.
then she knocks on the door, and there's Edwina in her bad drag again. And he's like, "Oh no, it's closed." And she's like, Henri called me himself and said that my appointment was moved to 7 and all this weird shit." And like, she's like, "Oh yes, here you are." And then there is Vincent Price in the 70s afro, um,
Yep.
and playing up how they expect gay people to act. Let's put
Yes.
it that way.
Yeah.
Little cringy,
Playing the male hairdresser stereotype
right?
Yes.
that had existed. Oh.
Though also a little funny. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it is.
Because
Um,
it's seeing Vincent Price in this utterly ridiculous costume. It's the hair. It's the hair that does it.
the
The
hair, the
she's like,
attitude, all of it. It's so funny. And the fact that he's like throwing all these compliments at a woman that you actually know eventually that outside of this movie he actually is really hot for is just
yes.
so funny. Um, but the whole thing is so utterly ridiculous. So, like they take off her shoes, stick her feet in a bin of water, and it's like a cheesy like if you were at a salon and they put this plastic bin at your feet, you'd be like, this is weird. I mean, like, think about it, this woman is wealthy. This is supposed to be a posh salon, and it looks like a plastic Tupperware tub that they just, you know what I mean? Like, you would
Yeah,
have questions. I'm just saying. But she says
she doesn't.
nothing. he rolls up her hair and then they hooks all these wire things to it, which I can see why you wouldn't question that much because keeping in mind not too long before that they actually did have those little, weird curlers that
I was
Yes.
did
gonna
plug
say
into things.
that actually was. I mean, if you've ever seen that stupid Bugs Bunny cartoon where he gives the monster a permanent, and he hooks him up to the machine that has the wires off of it, that is what they did. That I've seen one of those machines. They're
Yeah,
wild looking,
I
but they
saw.
were
I
they.
forget if it was a museum or antique store, but yeah, they are. They do look like some sort of torture implement.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, this
they
was a
used
little
to have.
different because it was actually little like clip wires, which is not what they did, but that's okay. And she does question that. She was just like, this is odd. And he's like, oh, no, don't question. I think he was calling himself Butch. Don't question Butchie. He knows what he's doing. And then he proceeds to tie her arms tightly to the chair.
Here.
She's like, I'm a little uncomfortable here.
Oh, it's the latest. Didn't he say it's like the latest thing from France?
And that was, I think, when she was asking about the
Okay,
hair thing.
okay.
But when she was saying it was a little comfortable, I forgot what he told her then. But I think at that point he'd already tied down her arms. It was a little too late, so they shove a rag in her face and flip the switch and begin electrocuting her. Meanwhile, the cop's upstairs flipping through a book, and I don't even know what he thinks is going on, or he can't hear anything.
Yes.
She screamed at one point, even before the thing was in there. He's just do 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 till he smells it,
Oh,
which had
oh,
to smell awful.
yes. It's the combination of burning hair and burning person.
I mean, it probably smelled somewhat like barbecue and burning hair, but like anyway, it's not a good, just not good.
Ah.
And so ends Chloe Moon. What was that? I'm sorry. Remind me what play that was supposed to be from. I'm sorry. I've totally spaced.
February
um,
the 6th. It's the
yes.
burning of Joan of
Burning of
Arc.
Joan of Arc. Right. Makes
What
sense.
I
Okay.
like about this whole series of deaths is it gets more creative as it goes along. Oh.
It does
Yeah,
get more creative. Yeah. Hmm.
it was fun. So I think after that is when they pick up Edwina to question her,
I
which
think
makes
so.
sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They don't hold her too long though, but I can't remember. No. Oh, I remember now. Sorry, I mixed it up. They did pick her up before the Romeo and Juliet episode. That's when they were holding her for questioning. And that's when Edward Lionheart revealed himself. And that's when they let her go. And that's when Devlin, whatever his name, and was like, I'd keep an eye on her anyway. She's a very devoted daughter. So
And
they
who's
had questioned her. They had been watching her. They had never noticed when she changed into drag and wandered off. So, yeah. But they did, like, I guess she was working on a set and she's, falls in the car with Devlin or Devin, whatever the hell his name is like, my father is alive. He revealed himself to me. And he's like, where is he? He's killed another person. And she's like, I can't tell you now. He's afraid. And like this guy's like, he's afraid.
he's
She's like,
afraid?
he thinks the cops will kill him on sight. And it makes this whole excuse. And they set up a time later to meet so she can take him to her father.
Yep.
And then we move on to Titus Andronicus, right?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Uh,
Betsy. This is
I can't watch this one, and not because it's of the insinuation of what he's
it's
eating.
gross.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's force feeding.
So,
Yes.
one, this critic was one of the most annoying, I think,
Mhm.
because he carries these stupid toy poodles around with him everywhere he goes. And he's like babying them and like talking to them, oh my babies, and like feeding them from like his plate, like around the other critics. It's
Oh,
very obvious that they're all very annoyed by this behavior, but he's like, it's my babies. So it was inevitable what was coming. And I knew that. But they Titus Andronicus his dogs. And you don't see anything. You
you don't
just
see
see
anything.
him.
There's no sound of a yelp.
Yeah.
No, none of that happens.
The
But you see,
worst thing is, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what you see is him eat the pies. He is having like this special meal made for him. Vincent Price is playing like a French chef, and he makes like a pie for him, and he feeds him the pie, and the guy's like, "Oh, this is delicious," wherever. Where are my dogs? Because he always shares his food with his dogs, and then Vincent Price comes over with a another pie, and it has the dog heads back on top.
Yep.
It should be funny, but it is because it's just so hilariously
So
wrong looking.
over the top. Just these goofy heads sticking out of the sky. And then the guy chokes on his food and essentially dies choking to death on his own dogs.
Yeah.
Is
Well, yeah,
basically
this is aided by Vincent Price shoving a funnel in his face and
and forcing
forcing,
him
yeah,
to
Yeah.
eat it. Yeah,
yeah,
because it is
filling him up.
Titus Andronicus, and that is part of what happens.
But also prior to that, they had this whole elaborate thing where they made like a latex mask that was sort of resembling Vincent Price's face and stuck it on one of the meth drinkers, and
Hmm.
that guy drove him around on a chase. And this was actually brilliant, but also a flawed plan at the same time. Because keep in mind, there's no real loyalty established by these people. Like I like that they just apparently because he wasn't dead and they thought he was for a while, just kind of had like a Jesus Christ syndrome for him, but they're just there and they're just drinking and they just listen to him because either he's helping their supply of um, methanol to be specific again, or but they, they clearly are not like loyal dogs. Let's put it that way. They're just
Yes.
hangers on, and that's
Yeah.
kind of clear in my opinion.
They're there because he's supplying them with
Yeah,
whatever
like
intoxicant they're after.
so the point being of that is like that unless this guy dies while he's doing this chase, it's gonna give up the ghost, right? So that's a flawed plan to begin with. But the police fall for the initial, romp and they're chasing the drunkard around the city thinking is, Edward Lionheart. Meanwhile, the other meth drinkers and Edward Lionheart are, setting up house in that critic's kitchen and yeah, and then killing him that
As
way.
if they're putting on this famous TV
Yeah,
show that the critic
something like
enjoys.
What's Your Bite or something like that, or
Uh,
Yeah.
who's your dish? What's your dish?
I
Something
thought it
like
was What's Your Bite, but whatever. What's your dish? What's your bite? And the whole thing was supposed to be that it was a well-known show, so the guy fell for it completely. But I'm like, "Hmm, no suspicion at all. Where's the cops on this one?" But the other ironic thing is that critic, the actor who played him, showed up in another horrible movie that was also, I think, a little later in the 70s. I think it was closer to 1980, called Who's Killing the Great Chefs of Europe, where he plays a food critic. And spoiler alert, he is the murderer in that one. It's terrible but funny. So if you get bored, watch it, and maybe you'll hate me for it, but you might enjoy it. There's a lot of creative kills in that one
I mean, we've
because
suggested
basically,
things a lot worse, so
yeah, his creative kills in that one are basically he kills them well inspired by that chef's famous dish.
Oh,
So
love it.
so there you go. But yeah, so we have our Titus Andronicus now, and now we're down to that's the last one now, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
King
that is the
Lear.
last actual murder.
Yeah, that's the last murder because the other final one for the
Did
main
not
boy,
complete. And what was that play it was based on? Do you have that list still, Betsy? I forgot
King
now.
King
Sorry.
Lear.
Lear was going to
King
be the
Lear,
last one. He was going to
punch the eyes out with it.
poke out his eyes.
But this is when Edward Lionheart's vanity overtook him, in my opinion.
Hmm. Do not make
Correct.
the kills overly complicated. Any horror fan should know that.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was because he wanted to get his award. Like,
Hmm.
it wasn't just about the kill now. He wanted this critic to say, yes, finally, you were the best. But this critic wasn't going to do it. And I
He
think
had
it was
not.
unfair because he should have given props for his create. And like, Vincent Price's character even says, look at my deaths. Look what I did with Shakespeare, And this guy's
Yes.
still like, no,
No,
boring.
he Price's character had a monologue at the end. I mean, that's essentially what that whole scene is, where he's demanding
You
the
give me the
award.
award.
Yeah.
And this guy, give him credit. He was not coming off his soapbox about that. He's like, nope, still belong to the other guy. You still suck.
And I mean, truly, he was like, look, that guy earned it that year. I'm sorry. It is what it is. You can say whatever you want, but I wouldn't even take it back now, giving it to him then, knowing what I know now. You still didn't earn it. Like,
Harsh.
huh.
Meanwhile, we have the turning of the meth drinkers. And now, okay, this is funny. Like, for years, I couldn't figure out like what was the trigger that they suddenly turned on them then. But I think I figured it out. So you had like basically only one female meth drinker there. And I think she was like the queen of the group, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And most of the time, you got to remember that Edwina, Diana Rigg's character, is walking around them as a man. And when they're plotting or doing something they shouldn't, and Vincent Price, Edward Leinert tells Edwina to go correct them, she's dressed up, she's now looking as a female. And she goes over and touches the one guy. And I think that's what triggered the meth queen to want her to kill her. Because I think she was like, why is this woman
Possibly.
touching my man?
Could
That's
be.
the only thing I've ever found out that made sense to me, than they spontaneously decided they want to kill her. I don't know. But that's my theory as to why that was the turning point. But unfortunately, at that point in time, the meth drinkers turn and they bludgeon Edwina to death, basically.
According to this write-up, the reason that they turn on her is because he has already set fire to the theater and they're in a panic and she's trying to calm them down and they're in a panic, so they just kill her. But
I don't think it plays that way.
I don't think so either. Just from what I was
Like, I think
watching, I
fire
didn't get
might
that.
have
So
started at that point, but they certainly weren't panicked.
no.
Oh well,
Yeah.
I guess it's all open to interpretation. So maybe that was why. I don't know, but yeah, they
I
kill her.
always I took it to see that they were kind of tired of the whole shtick.
That could be another thing. They were tired of
I
being
was
yelled
gonna
at in
say
court.
it's entirely possible. Yeah, they were tired of this. One of them got like arrested, like, and yeah, he sang, but I'm sure he was, because of his involvement, probably kept for a little bit at least. So
Oh, I'm sure they kept him as an accessory regardless, but
Yeah.
yeah. But basically, they got him to sing because he wanted a drink so badly that they were like, "We'll give you a drink if you tell us." So, of course, he totally sang. But yeah, meanwhile, the theater gets set on fire. They leave the guy behind. The police rescue the guy just in the nick of time. Vincent Price is up on the top of the theater roof giving his last soliloquy or
This great
monologue.
monologue between little scene between Edwina and Edward with the lines from King Lear.
Yeah, it is actually a very touching scene too. And then he just jumps into the fire pit, which so another interesting fact, like this was all filmed like on location around London. There was nothing done on a backlot or studio set,
Nice.
which is really cool. That theater was a theater that was like from 1906. I think it actually did catch a little fire. I don't know if it actually got destroyed that time, but it no longer exists now. So,
certainly they had enough of a fire that it got out of control, and they actually did have to call in the fire department to come and put out the fire that they started while they were filming. Oops.
there you go. But it is destroyed since, so like it's no longer there. I think it's probably luxury apartments or something now, I'm sure.
Sure.
But yeah, so I mean, I will say that you will have some of the most creative kills up to date at this point. So this movie came out in 1973. Um, and though you do have a horror movie genre at this point in time, I would say that this might have led to where you get crazy slasher kills, where you're looking at creative deaths and stuff like that, because you weren't really seeing that in the horror films prior to this.
No, not at that point. That was a later shift, I think, late
Yeah,
70s.
they were pretty straightforward. I think this was
Sniping,
also
stabbing, stranglings.
Hmm.
probably a very early horror comedy. Um, because it is
It wasn't
funny.
Abbott
Like,
and Costello, let's put it that way.
yeah, that wasn't like supposed to be straight funny, where it's a dark comedy. There is a lot of comedic stuff to it, but it is dark to laugh at. Like the dog heads in the pie. That is horrible. It is very funny. I I'm sorry because they still have the bows in their hair.
It's and it's so clearly not actual dogs' heads. You know what I mean? Like
Correct.
it literally looks like little stuffed animal heads.
Yes,
And
it
again, they didn't do the
absolutely looks like a stuffed animal.
yeah, and there was no squealing or yelping or anything that would make you. It was as much as it can be when you're using animal abuse, fairly tastefully done, not to upset people, if that makes
Yes.
any sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause
I don't know if
I
that
don't
was
think
their
at the
intent,
time they
but
could have gotten away with anything drastic that would have got past the censors.
there's that too, yeah. Um, but so Interesting. They made a stage adaptation. I don't know. Did you guys know that? Like it was in like 2005 or something like that.
Did
And
not know.
Diana
Uh,
Rigg's daughter starred in the same role that Diana Rigg had for this.
oh, I love that. That's
I
awesome.
was gonna say I did not know until I read that in the facts.
Same. Yeah, I mean, I had not been aware that they did that. When that's, I wish that had toured because that would have been awesome.
Oh God, that would have been
I would
great.
love to see that. I would love to see that production of it. Because this is it really is just a fun movie. I know it's a horror movie, but it's a fun horror movie. The kills are good, they're interesting to watch, and it has moments of being quite creepy, but for the most part, it's just fun. It's an enjoyable movie to watch, just from start to finish. It's and part of this is just Vincent Pricing the hell out of it. But also Diana Rigg, like honestly, Vincent Pricing the shit out of it.
Yes, yes.
I think
She
both
was
of
all
them
over it.
were really throwing themselves into the absurdity of the roles. Now, and
And
I
like,
don't think that this movie took itself incredibly seriously, and I would say that's one of its strengths. Because I think if they had tried to play it serious, it would have been a flop at that
yeah,
point.
I
I think it
agree.
would have been too much. Honestly, with the amount of death, there are 11 according to this list that I had.
Mhm.
Because I think there are like tangential deaths too that
Yeah,
aren't like,
it was counting those in as well.
yeah. But it's also like we said, finding out the story of him, you find that out in bits and pieces as it goes along. Basically, kind of like remembering, like almost the
Mhm.
like
Flashback.
flashbacky, yeah,
Yes.
Well
telling
done,
us
flashback.
like, yeah, well done flashbacks that are telling us like this is how it happened. This is what was said, this is what happened to him. He jumped off the thing. Like it was really, really interesting and well done and
It was. This is how
uh
we got to this point.
yeah, and it really was like a fun kind of character study of this actor who just never got past this. And then his daughter who is 100% devoted to him. And it's just I can't stop saying fun, but it's fun to watch. Like not
Yes.
everything we watch is fun. A lot of things are good, but not everything is fun. But this was fun. This is a romp of a movie.
Yeah.
But still scary enough that I'm like, this is a horror. I mean, it's obviously horror. It's just a fun horror.
The kills and the creativeness of the kills catapults it into the horror category for sure.
Right.
Agreed.
It's
Oh,
very Shakespeare, and Shakespeare is pretty harsh. Like
His
Shakespeare,
tragedies, big time tragedies.
yeah, his tragedies go. So I if you've never watched an actual like Titus Andronicus, that is a lot. Like there is a lot that happens in that. Uh and half of what they did wasn't half of what happens in Titus Andronicus. It is rough, rough go. Because the reason that he does that to in the first place feeds the children to her is woof. So yeah,
yeah.
Shakespeare by himself is super violent. Using deaths caused by like, based on Shakespeare, yeah, totally makes sense. Absolutely.
There's plenty of material to pull from.
So a couple clarifications. I'd said that like Vincent Price had always wanted to be. So what it was specifically, according to IMDb trivia, is that Vincent Price's greatest, one of his greatest desires was to play a Shakespeare character on a stage in England,
Ah,
specifically.
okay.
Frustrated by how his film career ultimately pigeonholed him into horror film roles, he relished a chance to quote Shakespeare in prose in this film and jumped at the
Oh.
chance when approached. And also was very pleased to cast opposite so many well known British character actors. Several of them had been part of the Royal Shakespeare Company. So that's what it is. And the theater was the Putney Hippodrome that was built in 1906, and it was finally demolished in 1975. So a couple years after this movie was finished, and housing was erected on the site. So there you go.
Yeah.
So we get all the facts in there. But yeah, again, like I think that's also what's amazing about this. You get these, like I said, really well known British character actors that were part, several of which were part of a Royal Shakespeare Company. And
Mhm.
like most of them were playing straight roles, and it works so well. Like it's just them acting the part in all seriousness and all straightness, like what Betsy and Rebecca said. With a few exceptions, you have the one guy who was the Othello, operator, was a little over the top, and then you have, the Titus Andronicus puppy daddy,
Yeah.
also over the top. But it was done the way it should have been. Like those two characters should have been over the top, and they were, and it worked. And the rest of them were very straight laced and very, you know,
Very British.
and it so much worked. And really, the most silly part of it was the cops. Like,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
like it was just like, why are they even here?
For all their effectiveness, yes. They
I
they
mean,
did
you want
not
to talk about,
stop one single death. Wow.
no, they did
I
not.
also really loved like the salon of it all, of the like as these murders are happening, the critics are still meeting in these like salons, having these like we're having a cocktail and talking about how all these people are dying. And how like it's almost like the banality of it all. Oh
Yeah.
God.
I thought
They
that
just
was
keep dying.
insane. Because I would think that if my circle of whatever association that I was involved in were getting offed, that I might perhaps be like, all right, I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna be somewhere else.
I think that was kind of part of the genius of this.
Yeah.
Because in that first meeting, when we're meeting all the critics, it is very obvious. None of them really like each other either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They all cordially hate each other, I think.
Yes, it's a very cordial hating of each other. And I'm sure it's because critics are kind of put against each other. Like each critic works for a different paper, I'm sure. They want their opinion to be lauded above other people's, so they have to be harsher, they have to be weirder, whatever it is, you have to find your niche, and then they have to work together to award these awards. But that's all. Like they're not working together on a normal basis. They're not going to come together and be like, I hated it. Did you also hate it? Okay, cool. They're going to give, their honest opinion, whatever that is. And I just think it's fun, especially that first scene. Like I said, you can tell that everybody gets annoyed by certain characters and whatever. And so you're already seeing that these people are associates, but they are not close. These are not friends. These are associates. And it's very different. And so the callousness of them later is more fun. But you can totally see how that one guy never learns his lesson because in his mind, he's always a critic. He was
Yeah.
critiquing them as they were dying.
Yep.
Like,
But also, to your point, that first scene really gives you a little bit of each of the characters so you understand who they are right away. Like it's like we're not looking at deep insight, but like they start off with, "Hey, so and so's not here because he's been killed," but you know,
Yeah,
should we start
it's
without him? And you get like a little taste of who each person is. You have one person says only polite, so you get the more standard stodgy, it's prim and proper protocol, who's saying, we should wait because that's the right thing to do. You have the one who's just offhand, the one that I call the pervy critic, because, he's like, he's not here, but where's your hot secretary? Let's just get started, right? Then you have the guy with the dogs, whose the whole thing is about his dogs, and you got the guy sitting next to him, like, get the filthy thing out of my way. Like you get enough little taste of each of their personalities to get who they are.
it was a very
Also,
effective scene for that. And it was a great idea to do it because it allowed you a quick snapshot of everybody. You
mhm,
didn't have to do a single intro. It brought them together as a unit that Price was bent on destroying.
mhm. And to
mhm.
Betsy's point, you can see that there was already just like, yeah, they were together
Cracks in
because
the
they did their job.
foundation. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And it gives you a real quick, like, these aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily bad people, but these are not necessarily good people either. They are
Yeah.
critics,
Mhm,
obviously. And I think that's interesting because we do, with this film, you do have to feel a bit for Vincent Price. You have to, or else you can't watch him do all this and enjoy it. And you do kind of enjoy watching him do all this.
rooting
I'm not
for
going
him,
to say you're
honestly.
rooting for him,
I
but
am.
you are definitely saying, "Oh, I see where he's coming from. I see why he's doing this, why this happened. I can understand his motivation for doing this."
I
And
mean,
it's
I was full behind him because you imagine every bully that you've ever known in the role of those critics. And you're like, yeah,
absolutely.
that's so and so from seventh grade. Die, bitch. Well,
Well, also to be fair, you may not be rooting from the start, but by the time you get to the end, I feel like almost everybody's kind of rooting for it. Because, like we noticed at the beginning when we started this out, we all said that we were really kind of mad that that last critic did not get his.
yeah.
So I just feel like in the end, you end up rooting for him because you want that last critic to die.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the kind of last thing that happens in the film is the critic criticizing
Criticizes
his
the
death.
death. Yeah.
Yes,
Something.
he always was a bit of an overactor.
Isn't
Yes,
it
and you're like,
overdramatic? It's like, you didn't. You just, oh my God, you just did. No.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, a piece of the building, some shit like his flaming skull to hit him, something. I wanted that motherfucker to die. I'm not gonna lie. I
Yeah.
was very mad. I've always been mad at from the first time I saw it to this last time I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he live?
It's very disappointing in that
It is.
aspect.
It does not give you that nice, happy, cathartic ending that you
Yeah.
want.
yeah,
That I
So
think, I mean, I think it was certain on purpose to show, oh, look, the critic is still being a critic. And I understand why they did it, but
it also
gosh,
gives it
it's fine.
it's a Shakespearean tragedy.
It's true.
Um, it's a very Shakespearean death. He death dies dramatically, and the bad guy is still left,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
left
that's true.
standing. So it's very Shakespearean in that way,
It is.
if you think about it.
yeah, I
Damn
mean,
it.
it's
You're right.
not an inappropriate ending, but you're gonna be. I'm mad about it. I'm gonna be
Oh
mad
yeah.
about it.
Oh
I
no.
got
I wanted him to get his comeuppance. I'm hoping that there will be some other horrible actor comes along and kills him after a bad
follows
review.
it as the
Goes, you know what?
sequel, a terrible
Lionheart was
sequel.
right.
Maybe even the guy that had won the award, he'll start getting like bad criticism from him and just decide to follow in Edward Lionheart's footsteps and finish the job. That'd be lovely.
We can
Or
hope.
Edward Lionheart didn't actually die, and then you get like a Phantom of the Opera thing.
Or the daughter is still alive somehow.
And she
Yes.
was just unconscious. She didn't actually die. She gets out. She's a Phantom with a scar. Yeah.
Yep.
People take notes.
I'll be perfectly honest. I
Somebody.
was trying to figure out who she looked like because she reminded me of someone, and it's Paul Williams a little
When
bit,
she's
just a little bit.
I'm gonna have to look
When
this up
she,
now.
huh?
I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Because when she's in drag, just a little bit like Paul Williams, especially 70s Paul Williams. He's shorter than
I,
her, but a little bit.
okay, I can
And
kind
he
of
was
see
in
it.
Phantom of the Paradise.
Well, except for he never has an afro though. That's the one thing I would say not like it. But I can kind of see the face when he has a beard and a goatee.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it's smooth
Yeah,
skin,
his
not
hair was
it.
always straight, but
Same kind of chin.
yeah,
My-
I can't.
But yeah, she
I
is
was
much
like,
taller
he
than him.
looks a bit like someone like the whole time. And I think that's also why it didn't occur to me at first that it was a woman because I kept going, kind of looks like Paul Williams. Who is this actor?
That
And
could have
then,
been enough to throw you off.
yeah, it threw me off. But
Yeah. Like I said, it took me a while to put the two together, but like I said, right away, I was like, is that a woman in a
I don't know. All I know is that this is cast
so
is
fun.
so good.
It's so fun.
Diana Rigg is so good.
Wonderful
It's so
casting.
funny.
Casting.
Yeah, it works so well. Like, and every role was an opportunity they did not miss. Like, and like to this day, I will never figure out why all these people signed on for it. Maybe they just wanted a good laugh and a good romp. One of
At
them
least
only signed on because of the other actors in it,
I was gonna say
but
I know one of them was like, no, this is too gory, but then he saw who else was signed on and was like, okay, fine, I'll do it.
yeah,
So just
but
so
yeah,
good.
but like it's just ridiculous. Like when you like, why is Joan Hickson in this? Why is any of them in it? But you're not mad about it because it's so good. Like it
Oh,
is so well done because of it. Like I can't imagine that if they had just gone like with a B-roll acting cast, that it would have been as good.
no, I think it's the nature of having so many penultimate professionals in it that
Absolutely.
good. And I think there was a lot of who's in it, so and so's in it, and some of them I think also were like totally geeked about working with Price as
Oh,
well.
sure.
So,
I would be.
Absolutely.
God, yes.
I mean, and also I think there was probably, I mean, at least some of them had to sign on because it just seemed like it was going to be fun to do. Like it
Yes.
had to be fun to shoot. It had to be. Some of those scenes are wild. It had to be kind of fun to do it. Like truly.
And
You
different,
get to like scream like that or act like that. You get to
probably
overact to
different from
the
my
nth.
usual roles, you know.
Yeah.
So
But you know,
fun.
when you think about it, when you think about the really great ensemble cast movies that are like
Mm.
movies, you're like, what is going on? Like Murder by Death. When you think about that cast, Truman Capote, David Niven, Maggie Smith, Peter Falk, you know, like
Yeah,
what is happening
the
there?
lady
It's,
who
you
plays
know,
Peter Falk's companion in that film,
oh,
she's
Madeline, no, not Madeline Kahn. Shit. She was in Clue as well. I should know
yeah,
this.
I
yeah.
God, that's gonna make me crazy. I love her and I can't think of her name. I'll find it. Don't
Mhm.
worry.
feel like it's gonna come to me and I
Eileen Brennan.
Eileen
Okay.
Brennan. Yes.
Yeah, Eileen Brennan made me crazy. And then again, Clue is another one, you know.
Yeah.
Think,
Leslie Warren, Tim Curry, Michael McKean, you know, like
and I think these
Madeline
movies,
Kahn, Eileen Brennan.
these ensemble films, when they do get all the amazingly very talented actors, you see just great things come from it. Oh, so,
And
And
so
from great actors, you can get great silliness, which is
oh yeah.
something you need.
Mhm.
I think if this, I think we've talked about it, but if this had been a fully straight film, if it had just been played serious, serious, serious the whole way through, it would have been too dark to watch. Like,
It
honestly,
wouldn't have been
that's
as
a
fun.
man at the deepest of despair who attempted suicide, came
Mhm.
back from it, and then starts picking off people one by one. That is some dark, dark stuff if you just say those words out loud. And yet, this was like funny and like campy and whatever because it needed to be. Because if you watch that film, you would leave not feeling great.
Yeah, I think
and not
so.
just because the final critic didn't die.
Right.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have followed, you know, the sort of the classic horror film lineup.
No. So I feel like there's probably been something out there that has done this and we probably don't remember because we blocked it from our memories.
Right. Because it was
Sure.
too dark and it was too much to
Mhm.
watch. Like
Yeah,
I
I mean,
can
yeah,
think of like films that take themselves very, very seriously and are hard to watch. Like it's hard.
yeah.
Yeah. Invisible Man, 2020.
Uh,
You know,
Midsummer.
find yourself yelling at the screen. You know, this is, and I think the comedy nature of this film is what prevents us from being the yelling at the screen. You
Oh
know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's laughing at the screen instead. But with that,
Yes.
because we digressed again, which is fine
We did.
because we're fun like that.
We do
Um,
that.
I mean, I guess there's really the only thing to say is watch this movie. You'll have a
Watch
Yes.
it.
fun time.
Wholeheartedly, I give it a recommendation.
There is one film with Vincent Price that I will tell you not to watch, and this is not.
This is not it.
Is the film we don't need to mention again, but this one you
No.
watch, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
hope this was worth the wait, guys. Sorry we missed April. But definitely enjoy Vincent Price and Theater of the Blood. I'm pretty sure you can find it streaming free almost anywhere, or you could
Yeah.
buy it. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's on like half a dozen free sites. So.
It's the same. Worth it.
Mhm.
All
Well,
right.
night all.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Girls Go Schools podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Girls Go Schools podcast, on Twitter at Girls Ghost Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girls Go Schools podcast, and find our podcast on your favorite podcatcher.